So let's go to the second half of our discussion topic this evening, more on a more upbeat note. Going from the confused note to the more upbeat note, let's talk a little bit about Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah,
this character's been in the news the last few weeks, actually, with the announcement of Clone Wars coming back and doing a final season, and the big reveal of her in the trailer. Everybody's abuzz again about Ahsoka Tano.
And, I love me some Ahsoka.
Having her show up in Rebels, albeit very briefly, really, in the scope of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to get a sense of. I want to talk about Ahsoka Tano, the character's importance to the Star Wars franchise, because here we have a character that has not appeared in any of the movies, is purely a new canon creation, and has, at least by my estimation,
in the old canon,
created by Lucas.
Because Clone Wars started before the Disney transition.
Okay, but she was pulled over. Okay, point being though, from my estimation, this character is as important, or maybe even more important, than say, a Thrawn or a Mara from the old Legends.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, in the new canon, she is more central than they were in the old canon. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, how does she fit into the Star Wars? I mean, I just want to kind of get everybody's thoughts on that. I mean, she to me is like the new Mara. I mean, as popular as Mara Jade was,
thought of it that way, but yeah, at least.
She's a new.
Her popularity is insane,
I'd like, if I could.
We used to think of Mara that way. I mean,
you guys
put
do,
out of your mind, everything. Well, yeah, but I know you weren't into it as deep as we were prior to, but
we were into Star Wars before it was.
I mean, I think there were polls and things that were done prior to the new canon that, I mean, Mara Jade was far and away the most favorite of the expanded universe characters.
Yeah.
Like by far, wasn't even close. Maybe Thrawn was up in there too, but it feels like to me that, I mean, Ahsoka is so central to this new canon. And it's interesting to me that she has nothing to do with the movie. She's not tied into them at all.
Well, she was in the movie release of
the
Clone Wars.
Well, I think part of it is she brought in a wave of younger viewers that got into the Clone Wars.
That's part of it, yeah.
And so that popularity is from there, where they're, might not be as tied to like Mara Jade because they know nothing about Mara Jade.
But how do people talk about Ahsoka now versus how they did 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, see, that's a great point, because
I just had a conversation a few weeks ago with someone at GameStop.
Whoa,
she's probably
this is getting legit now.
I know.
Buying some pops at GameStop.
I don't know how old she is, but she's probably in her 20s. But grew up loving Ahsoka Tano, and she could not. That was like her favorite. So
that's good and all. A lot of kids grew up liking Jar Jar. So why is Ahsoka so revered now? Right?
Seriously, because her beginnings were very rocky, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
Because remember I was going to say, in that opening film, I remember you especially were very vocal about that. And you're like, I hate that character.
Yep.
She's whiny. She's annoying. I don't understand
kind of like Luke.
Why Anakin is training her and he's not a master.
At the end of the movie, she was still whiny and annoying.
Yeah, it took a while for that character. I would say probably a good full season before people started appreciating
that character. Had the luxury of incubation in a long form television show. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. I've changed my tune in the last few years. I was never that into Ahsoka. I was never that into the Clone Wars show. I was touch and go with it. I was like, yeah, that was okay. Okay, that episode sucked. Okay, I'm bored and turning it off. But for me, it was the whole end of the Clone Wars where Ahsoka didn't just die in Order 66.
Yep.
She didn't just fall out of the story. It's that she literally went against. It's almost like Ahsoka stood for, okay, I'm going to go deep. Bear with me. I'll try to keep it short.
Here we go.
So I was at GameStop.
Yeah, that's where all good conversations start.
Ahsoka, for me, what she did was that she took a lot of the feelings that I think a lot of reactions that people had to, as the prequels came out, the Jedi were not maybe exactly what people expected. You know, it seemed like a very, an organization that didn't seem very self-aware, given all of the brilliant minds that were in it, right? Oh, you know, love is bad, attachment is bad, it leads to bad things. And that's very old school. Like, new age thinking is to give, you know, allow your emotion, control your emotions, but experience them, live them, you know what I mean? And so all this like disattachment stuff, and we justify saying, well, that's part of why the Jedi got destroyed. Yeah, okay. But Ahsoka was this character who was in that, who stepped out and said, you know, right and wrong isn't necessarily what you're saying it is, you know? Like, I'm not going to blindly follow everything that the Jedi have put in front of me because I don't agree with what you're doing. And I'm just going to walk away. I'm going to step away from it. And I think that shift made that character. And of course, there was a build to that. It's not like it happened all at once, right? Mm-hmm. But that made me have a lot more respect for that character. It's like, oh, she not only grew up, she grew up more than all of the rest of the Jedi. Agreed. With a few exceptions, right? Or arguable exceptions. Of other Jedi that had similar paths, but her path was distinct. And that made the character far more impressive to me. And then folding her into the deeper cuts of Rebels, the deeper meanings, the deeper explorations of like the living force and the Mortis gods and all that stuff, like making her a central through line through all of that. And puts her right in the stuff that I'm fascinated by. I want more. On top of it, her story's still going, man. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
There's more story to be told for her.
More Ahsoka.
I love that they haven't killed her off yet or discarded the character.
I think part of it too is, the person who plays her has a deep love for the character too.
You know, and that does show through. I love Ashley Eckstein's enthusiasm for the character. Well, I mean, she just loves that character.
And Filoni, Ahsoka is his baby. Mm-hmm. He loves the character. And I think that's why we didn't get too much Ahsoka in Rebels. I think that's why it was held back. Right. Because, it's kind of like, hey, we got a good thing going here. Let's not overplay it. Let's hold it back so that it has legs for a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That artificial scarcity that makes people want more.
But going back to what you were
saying, the Disney vault again, if you will.
But going back to what you're saying, I mean, I love that this character has grown over time. That yes, she was annoying and people didn't like her at first, but that with time.
And anybody that says, "But that was the point of the character," I'm like, that's just bad writing.
I don't know. I think seeing massive growth in a character is very.
Whether it was planned that way or not, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
right.
I love the path.
In a character is great, but making the character not annoying to watch. Like you can, okay, it's the same thing about a villain. My favorite villains are likable villains, not because they're good and likable. I like them because they're interesting. Ahsoka was not interesting. She was for me, her defining characteristic at the start was annoying. Not that she acts annoying, but she's interesting. It's this entire thing is annoying.
To me, she almost parallels Luke that way because
that's what I'm just saying.
From A New Hope to Empire to Return of the Jedi, we go from, annoying farm kid to totally loyal to my friends to wizened Jedi.
So, this is why you're wrong.
I agree with Mike. I agree with Mike.
The reason I disagree with that predominantly because I agree with it parallels. I do not agree with that making it really all that comparable because Luke was naive and she was overconfident. So that.
Well, but that's a nice distinction. I'm not saying it's a complete parallel, but I'm saying it's the same kind of path. I mean, I feel like, she was very annoying at first, whether if she was meant to be that or not.
She was young. I
love that she was annoying initially and that, over time we grew to love her. And by the end, like you said, I love the fact that at the end of her arc at Clone Wars, even though it was truncated and shortened, that she went through her trial, where she was accused of a crime she didn't commit. She was ultimately redeemed. And, you know, here's Anakin going up to her. Okay, you're back. You know, and then she looks at him. She goes, "I'm done." And totally walked away. That's one of my most favorite Star Wars scenes in all of Star Wars is the scene where she's walking away from the temple.
I know.
That gives me the goosebumps.
I invoked that earlier when I talked about her literally walking away.
Takes that little thing, that little jewel necklace thing off her head and hands it to him.
But the point that I'm making is that the writing tightened up.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
The complimenting point I'm making to that is that it wasn't good, but it got good. That's all I'm saying. Sure. Like I said, I love Ahsoka now.
Sure.
But it took a long time to get on that train. And I don't think it's just because I had some sort of attention deficit issue with the deeper meaning of the character early on. No, I think it was a shit character and they made something good out of it. And that's great. But the ends don't justify the means. You know, or that statement doesn't really apply here, but like, you know, it took a while to get there and they found their footing. But anybody who argues that it was on the right footing from the start, that's me, that's retconning. That's retconning.
I don't even know that all of the Clone Wars were on the right footing.
That I'm trying not to say it. Like, guys, the whole show sucked for a few seasons, but I know that just sets people's hair on fire.
I wouldn't even say that for a few seasons. I think there were certain arcs that really carried the show. The droid arcs were hard. The Jar Jar arcs were hard.
The clone exclusive arcs were real rough for me. I'm gonna say 70 to 80% of the show.
Sort of enjoyed those, but the Jedi arcs I was with, you know, the Ahsoka arcs I was with. So, you know, it was they crammed a lot into those shows, and I guess it is what it is. But
it's good that it is. We can disagree on the nuances of where it started. But the fact is, it still ended up where it is, which is that she is one of the there's more depth to her influence on Star Wars than just about any other character that has been since created. You know what I mean?
I just have to wonder. I mean, even for myself, I mean, honestly, I'm more interested in Ahsoka and her future than even I am with the new saga characters.
Oh, that's what I was driving at.
Maybe that'll change. After we
aside from Rey,
I don't know.
I'm interested in Rey. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I'm probably more interested in Rey than Ahsoka because I have no idea what's going to happen with her, and I've always liked that character.
I want to be more interested in Rey, and I could say maybe Force Awakens. I would say I was maybe a little more interested in Rey, and also I wasn't totally on the Ahsoka bandwagon. I was climbing on at that point. But since The Last Jedi, and because of the conversation that we just had, we're like, we don't even know what Rey.
I know, that's what makes it so awesome.
No,
I don't know about that.
To me, same argument that I make about early annoying Ahsoka. It's like, nope, I fell off the wagon, and that's not my fault.
I mean,
I'm just a watcher.
I get that the argument that Rey is still a blank slate, but I don't feel like that's good storytelling. I feel like you need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the Rey character feels like it had a beginning. The middle, though, was like,
meh.
Well, I don't understand what was accomplished. It felt like more of a Luke story than a Rey story. So I don't know. But I guess we'll have to see, you know, what JJ does with 9, but
I would be far more hooked into, like, if someone just said, okay, I don't even read most of the comics, right? But someone says, oh, we're going to do an Ahsoka comic line that takes place 2 years after Return of the Jedi. I would immediately be more interested to know what that story is going to be. Now, it's 2 years after Return of the Jedi, right? We already know what happens galaxy-wide after that.
Right.
I'd be more interested in knowing what's going to happen in that story than literally anything else that's been announced so far. Anything. Movies,
her and
comics,
Sabine looking for Ezra, and then Ezra and Thrawn's there. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I mean, there's stories to be told there. So I love that they've set that up. Yeah, it's great. And like I said, I love that Ahsoka's story's not done yet. I'm glad that Filoni has kind of reeled it in a little bit and is keeping some legs with it. I even appreciate, my fear when we knew that Ahsoka was coming back in Rebels was that she was going to overpower that show.
Yeah.
And maybe for a couple episodes she did.
And for several episodes I was like, oh no, more. What
want
happened?
it, and then she's gone. But in hindsight, I'm like, that's probably the best thing he could have done.
Well, and the writing justified it at the end. They told you exactly why, which I refuse to say they had that all planned out. Sure. But they wrote it to the point where it was like, okay, yeah, that was good enough writing that's absolutely acceptable for me not getting what exactly I wanted back then. Fine, everything's great,
It just it's interesting to me too, with all the divisiveness, especially online and everything with the fandom, that this particular character seems to be the unifying piece. There's kind of two factions right now with Star Wars fandom online. I'm not going to get into that.
No, remember,
but the unifying piece.
There's two factions that represent 5% at either end of the spectrum, and then there's 90% of.
I get it, man. Okay, the loud people online. Okay, even the loud people online. You got it. Even the loud people online. I think even they agree that Ahsoka's pretty badass. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? She just seems to be very unifying.
I don't follow
piece.
all the misogynist fans that I hear there's so many of. I mean, I know they exist. I'm not stupid in that regard. I know they exist, but I don't follow them. But I also haven't heard anyone talking about how the misogynists hate Ahsoka.
Nobody does.
No, I'm assuming someone
Everybody
does.
loves
and as soon as you say nobody does, someone will tweet and be like, "Look at these, man!" And it's like, okay, yeah, some idiot's going to hate everything.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, so. You don't hear about it. You don't hear about it because the character has earned the respect.
Yeah, you can tell the respect because Ashley Eckstein's still on Twitter. Right?
Yeah, exactly. She hasn't dished social media. I don't know.
She hasn't been bullied off social media.
I don't know if I want to kick open this hornet's nest. I really don't know because I know it's back. I know it's back, and I just don't know that I want to even talk about it. It was done. Or it's not done, but we covered it. We talked about it.
So, any other thoughts on Ahsoka, Garrick?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, if I had to compare it, I would compare it to the anime series Naruto.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Because at the beginning of Naruto, the main character, Naruto Uzumaki, is the most annoying character to ever walk the face of the earth. But at the end, he actually turns it around, actually learns a lesson. He turns into a pretty cool character. And probably one of my favorites now. So, yeah, that's a 1-to-1 ratio right there.
Playing all those Namco Bandai fighting games, are you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Howie, any parting thoughts on Ahsoka?
Well, I would love to get a more of a female perspective on this because for a primetime Star Wars character, she's one of the first big female characters that kind of came out. Yeah, on a big, we had Leia, but
I'll say when it comes to, okay, you're folding the movies. I thought when you said primetime, I thought you meant TV exclusively.
No, I meant like, big in the limelight.
Is it even worth saying once again that Leia doesn't get enough love? We're also critical of each other and backpatting of each other, going, finally a powerful female in Star Wars, and I'm like, the whole thing.
I've said that from the beginning.
I know. I know. That's why I said
those comments fall on deaf ears. But
I don't think Leia gets enough love, but I think that was a product of the time. The
character of Leia was almost cut from the script because George Lucas considered making Luke a female.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
And yet we finally pulled ourselves out of the dredges of garbage. He was also going to make everybody dwarves at one point. So whatever.
That film went through a lot of incarnations.